What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. We have a awesome Switch 2 update video today all about the graphics and performance and tips on how you can pre-order your Switch 2 coming on April 24th. So stay tuned for that, but we're going to be talking about DLSS and ray tracing on the Switch 2, and it looks like we have double confirmations for both in two specific games on the Switch 2 with Cyberpunk 2077 and Star Wars Outlaws. And also for some of you new subscribers out there, I'm going to give you a little bit of a history lesson on where I come from in terms of my perspective on graphics and Nintendo consoles and just consoles in general versus PC. And since I know this is a new Nintendo console, many people may assume that since I cover Switch 2 that my opinion is going to be automatically biased towards Switch 2 versus everything else, and that actually is not true. I have the receipts to prove it dating all the way back to 2021. Yes, I do favor Nintendo. I have always covered Nintendo on this channel and I grew up with Nintendo, but in terms of tech and graphics, my opinion has always stayed the same no matter what hardware I'm talking about, and I'll show you a very good example of that in this video. But first up, let's talk about DLSS for the Nintendo Switch 2 and Cyberpunk 2077, and we have direct confirmation from CD Projekt Red that they are in fact using DLSS for the Switch 2 version of the game. And this is something I actually noticed myself before Digital Foundry came in and said that they didn't think it was using DLSS. I actually did notice visually when I covered the game on my initial impressions on April 2nd and all the examining of all the footage that I could during that time. I did talk about this. Take a look. This is all like in-game stuff. Looks like it's definitely using some type of reconstruction image scaling stuff. But like, yeah, that's kind of like what I expected.
Get ready to meet unforgettable
but yeah, we need to see obviously the full game. But yeah, it's definitely Cyberpunk 2077, right? So the whole confusion came after the fact. When people were playing Cyberpunk 2077, they couldn't get a very clear answer from CD Projekt Red if the game was using DLSS or not. And then of course we had Digital Foundry come in and say that no, it wasn't using DLSS from the trailer footage that they looked at.
It's 720p, 792p with a 1080p max, and as you can see for the footage here, running at capped at 30 frames per second.
The image quality is not as bad as the numbers would suggest. It's clean enough. It's certainly light years beyond the last generation PS4, but I am still disappointed that we're likely not seeing DLSS here.
And all the sites ran with that information as being fact before actually getting clear confirmation from CD Projekt Red, and now we do have clear confirmation, and this actually comes from CD Projekt Red directly answering the question from Digital Foundry, because apparently they weren't sure. Even though they said they didn't see any DLSS, they said we're using a version of DLSS available for Nintendo Switch 2 hardware powered by NVIDIA's Tensor cores. The game utilizes DLSS in all four modes, in handheld and docked, and the performance and quality variations of each. So there you have it, confirmation that Cyberpunk is using AI upscaling from the Tensor cores, which is DLSS, for the Nintendo Switch 2. And they said they're using a version of DLSS available for Switch 2, which means they could be using either the CNN model, the Transformer model, or Nintendo's own customized version of DLSS for Switch 2. And this is an early game on the Switch 2, so I would imagine they're probably using whatever Nintendo provided them in the dev kit, which could be what they patented for DLSS support for the Switch 2 in order to get the best performance out of it. They may be using that. We don't know for sure. They don't confirm what version it is here, but it is definitely DLSS. And then they brought out something interesting about what the target resolutions are. They said that they are targeting 1080p resolution in docked quality mode and in docked performance mode. And very interestingly, they are actually targeting 1080p in handheld quality mode as well, and targeting 720p in handheld performance mode. So that is actually really interesting. They're targeting the same resolution across both docked and handheld modes, except they're moving the quality mode to 1080p in handheld mode. And then they slightly clarified what the resolution scaling range was. They said that the Switch 2 is currently targeting 1080p resolutions in all modes except handheld performance mode, with a scaling range of 2 times and upwards per access, which means it's going as low as 540p up to 1080p scaling with DLSS on Switch 2 in docked mode, and they're going as low as around 360p or so in handheld mode to get it up to 720p, scaling it. And of course the Switch 2 automatically is going to upscale this game on your TV to 4K. It will output at 4K. So I imagine this is going to look pretty darn good on the Switch 2 in docked mode, and from what people were playing on those 4K TVs at those Switch 2 playtest events, everyone said who played it that the actual image quality looked pretty good on the Switch 2. So the DLSS they're using does in fact lessen the stair-stepping and the jagged edges basically of the image and makes it look more clean. And yeah, it's actually rendering at a lower resolution, and we've done many technical tests live and in video format of the difference between FSR2, FSR3 versus DLSS CNN and DLSS transformer model. But no matter what DLSS version they're using, it is way better than whatever they're using for FSR2 or 3 on the console versions of Cyberpunk 2077 that are not the Switch 2 or PC. And like we've been saying for months now, that is the biggest advantage the Switch 2 is going to have versus something like the Steam Deck or Xbox Series S, because they are limited with FSR upscaling and it looks really bad. And we're going to show you another example of it later in the video regarding Star Wars Outlaws. And it's going to be really interesting to see where that port ends up in terms of image quality for the Switch 2 versus Xbox Series S, but we're going to get to that in just a moment. But in regards to Cyberpunk 2077 on Switch 2, this goes to show, like we've been saying recently in my live streams and in other discussions, that sites like Digital Foundry have a gigantic following, and when they say something in their videos, people take it as fact. But I've consistently been trying to remind people that they are not the developers. All they can do is give opinions based on what they see, and yes, a lot of times they are correct, but as we're seeing here with Switch 2, they are already incorrect on some of the things that they're saying, and the console is not even released yet. Yeah, and I know Digital Foundry said there's no DLSS, but they there's some information out there that they were saying they are implementing DLSS into this game for Switch 2, CD Projekt Red. Also, that was a trailer that Digital Foundry was examining. It wasn't actual. They didn't actually have their hands on the game. They're not professional developers, and they make mistakes like everyone else. And I would not always take everything they say as, like God's word. So take it from what the developers say. Take it from what the actual companies say about what they're doing. Just, when you're reviewing trailer footage from capture devices, it's hard to make a concrete judgment of what games or what resolutions they're running at. So yeah, this is going to be a long generation, and we're going to be doing this quite a bit, but it's going to be fun. We're probably going to have a lot more examples in the future with this kind of stuff with Digital Foundry. So this is really just getting started. And I really want all these sites to report things correctly if they can. And when they don't report things correctly, I really feel obligated to make videos. All I'm trying to do is provide the most accurate information as possible to you guys and encourage you guys to do your own research and to question these authorities that are actually trying to make blanket judgments as facts. It's very difficult for a smaller channel like me to get the word out, but other bigger Nintendo YouTube channels are catching on to this and reporting it as well, so that is very good news and it bodes well for the future. So yeah, we got about a month and a half until Switch 2 is released. Good luck to CD Projekt Red and their port for Cyberpunk 2077 Ultimate Edition on Switch 2. I hope it runs the best it can and looks the best it can on launch day, but I do expect them to have further updates to the game later on and further patches for performance and whatnot. But I am very excited to play that game on Switch 2. I hope you guys are as well. So next up, we have ray tracing pretty much getting confirmed to be used in Star Wars Outlaws for the Switch 2 port of the game. And it's well known that the developer of that game for Ubisoft said that the entire game can't run without ray tracing being implemented into the game itself. It's actually part of the development of Star Wars Outlaws. So many people are questioning from that little snippet of footage of the Star Wars Outlaws on Switch 2 if it was actually running on the console or not. And then we had a new update trailer showing the game running on the handheld, and people noticed it was running below 30 frames per second, looking a little choppy there, but the actual trailer showed the detail of the game looked like it was intact. They just had to iron out that performance. And trust me though, I am not a defender of Star Wars Outlaws. I never was interested in buying the game or playing it. It is a Ubisoft game and it definitely looks like an Ubisoft game from everything I've seen, including on other consoles and on PC. In fact, Digital Foundry brought out when they covered this on Switch 2 that they did see the ray tracing in the footage, and it does corroborate what the developers said, that the game uses ray tracing in everything that it does in the engine. And it was brought out there's ray tracing like artifacts in the Switch 2 version that they're showing in the footage, and ray trace reflections in the footage as well. So there you have it. Most likely we have the first confirmed Nintendo Switch 2 game that's using ray tracing, and we can see it there in the footage. From a technical standpoint, it is interesting, but in regards to this being an impossible port for the Switch 2, I don't buy that idea. I think the game just needs to be optimized to run on the Switch 2, and they're not releasing it until September, so they've still got about 5 months to go in development to optimize the game. I'm not really worried about that personally. This game does actually run on the Steam Deck, and yeah, it doesn't run very good, but there are people online that have gotten some customized settings going to get it to run pretty well on Steam Deck at about 30 frames per second on the lowest settings on PC. So it definitely is possible on Switch 2. I never thought this was an impossible port. I never even thought this game looked that good in the first place. This is just my opinion, of course. If you think it looks amazing, great on you. But for me, this game looks like a PlayStation 4 game with better lighting and more NPCs and a bigger open world. But the actual art style does not look that great in my opinion. And the console port of Star Wars Outlaws on Xbox Series S, in comparison, that game does not look good in my opinion. Like I said, this is just all my opinion, but the game does not look good. It has really bad image quality, it has all kinds of artifacts and image breakup because they're using an FSR and they're having to lower the settings. So yeah, the Switch 2 version I wouldn't expect to look that much different from the Xbox Series S version. And again, this is Ubisoft. Ubisoft is well known for not optimizing their games on pretty much any platform, including PC. The PC version of Star Wars Outlaws runs really bad as well, even on a 4090, especially at launch. Yes, they patched it, but the game has had performance issues on every platform, so I wouldn't be surprised if the Switch 2 port also has some performance hitches as well. Again, not a very good example, but this is a game that actually uses ray tracing for sure on the Switch 2, so that is pretty cool information in of itself. I've always had the same opinion about art style versus graphics versus tech versus how it's implemented into the games, and in fact, this goes all the way back to 2021 when I talked about Ghost of Tsushima in one of my live streams versus Cyberpunk 2077, and I was actually replying to a tweet from John Lindemann from Digital Foundry. Take a look at this.
Like, if you guys follow me on Twitter, I posted a video of a short little clip of that Zelda Wii U demo from 2011. In my opinion, that looks better than anything on the Nintendo Switch from that Wii U technical demo for Zelda. I had the what's his name, John Lindemann from Digital Foundry come in and reply to me saying that, oh, you know, you're just liking the art style, you know, but it's not actually technically doing anything better. It's very much from that last generation, but that's not really the point. It didn't have anything to do with the technical, like what it was doing technically, because if you look at a game like Cyberpunk 2077, it's using the most technically advanced special effects, ray tracing to the highest degree. It'll destroy your computer basically if you want to run it. I have a 3080 Ti, but does it look as good graphically as this? I don't think so. And the reason why is because of the art style. It doesn't necessarily mean it's technically on a technical level doing more graphically, but more pleasing to the eye. Yes, you can do that. You can have games that look better because of how amazing their art direction is. Because art direction, 3D artists are just as important as, you know, GPUs that implement ray tracing automatically on stuff. That's just as important.
Star Wars Outlaws, in my opinion, is a great example of a current gen game that uses all the bells and whistles of ray tracing and all those reflections and everything like that, and people say it's so impressive, but it just looks like a PlayStation 4 game. That is exactly the diminishing returns that we've been talking about for a long time. Moving on for that, the Switch 2 is confirmed for pre-orders to be starting on April 24th at Best Buy, Target, Walmart, and GameStop, with Target confirming that they will be doing midnight pre-orders for Switch 2 on April 24th, which means April 23rd at midnight. You're going to be wanting to be on the Target websites in order to pre-order the Switch 2. Make sure you have all your account information into your website browser. Make sure you're signed in, have your credit card information input into your account. And when the time comes to pre-order Switch 2, make sure you're refreshing with F5 on the page. That is my best tip in order to get a pre-order for Switch 2 at Target at least. Best Buy and Walmart haven't been clear on when they're opening up pre-orders as far as I can tell. I've been looking. However, GameStop is doing in-store pre-orders on April 24th when the store opens. So in order to pre-order the Switch 2 at GameStop, you're going to have to physically go there and line up outside. And and there's been reports of the GameStop getting at least 100 Switch 2 consoles per store. Most of them will be getting that many, they said. So I do suggest you go line up and wait for the Switch 2 at your GameStop, and if there's more than 100 people there at your local GameStop, you're probably not going to be able to pre-order a Switch 2 is my guess. Or they may try shenanigans and say that they only have bundles ready for you to pre-order, which would cost like $600 or $700 depending on what they try to bundle with Switch 2, because GameStop is known for doing that. Be ready for any type of sales that they try to push on you at GameStop if you do decide to go there. But I have had the best experience pre-ordering from Best Buy in the past. I got a PS5 and the Nintendo Switch, both from Best Buy. So Target is going to be a good option, but I am waiting to hear hopefully some updates from Best Buy to see when you can pre-order from them. But at the very least, they'll be doing pre-orders as soon as the stores open, which would be their regular hours on April 24th. So that's my best advice in order to pre-order a Switch 2, is to make sure all your payment information is in your account for all your credit cards that you're going to be using or whatever you need for payment. Make sure you're logged in before pre-orders go live, and then refresh the page on the actual page that the Switch 2 is on for pre-order. As soon as you have that add to cart, put it in there, and then go to checkout as soon as you possibly can. These sites are only allowing for one purchase per person, so make sure you have all that information ready beforehand before they go live. That's going to be your best shot in order to pre-order a Switch 2 online. Otherwise, going physically and lining up outside of GameStop or at Best Buy is my guess, which could be a crazy kind of line situation depending on which place you go to. So all I can say to you guys is I wish you the best of luck, that you can pre-order a Switch 2 and be happy on June 5th. I'm going to try my best as well. I'm in the same boat as you guys. So yeah, good luck to everyone. Hopefully we all can get a Switch 2 on launch day. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this one. If you did enjoy this content, please hit the like button, subscribe for more, and I'll talk to you very soon in the next video. Have a great day.